What's up, everybody? Good Monday morning to you out there, and welcome into another edition of the Auburn Blitz podcast. Glad that you've joined us. Right out of the gate, a little apologies on my end for the raspiness of my voice. The weather has gotten to me, so I'm going to shut up a lot this morning and let Faith and Jason Caldwell do all the talking. And Jason, good to see you this morning, buddy. Glad you're joining us now on Monday mornings. Faith, always good to see you.
Morning.
Yeah, doing good. I appreciate you gonna let me hop on for a few minutes this morning.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. Well, real quick, a little bit of business. We want to thank Sensa Green for air that's cool and clean. Call on Sensa Green. They are the carrier experts here in the state of Alabama. And Scout Program Management, a full construction management firm that really concentrates in educational projects, new schools, renovations, those type things. So can't thank them enough, and really appreciate their support here on the Auburn Blitz podcast. We got Jason on this morning, Faith. We're going to talk a little bit about the Tennessee-Auburn game, obviously. What a huge win. But, Jason, I want to start with recruiting. Huge weekend, all the juniors that came in this past weekend. Just kind of give a summary to everybody of kind of how things went. Obviously, it helps when you have a big basketball game and game days in town, and things turned out the way they turned out Saturday night.
Yeah, no, it was I think it was a good couple of days. Really, these things were normally happening in, later in the spring and, the summertime when you had, signing day in February, and there's still a signing day in February, and they'll, Auburn may have some news on that front too as well this year. But, most of the time these guys are now taking official visits in March and April and May, and then deciding before their senior seasons. And so getting them on campus now is a big deal. And so Auburn had a bunch of guys, some 5 stars, a few guys that will be 5 stars when they flesh out the full 32, of those 5-star guys. But, you look, obviously, Sadarian Morgan, one of the guys on campus, and he's a guy that if you had the full 32 would be a 5-star, and I think he will be a 5-star wide receiver in this group. But again, getting him back on campus was big. And you had some local guys that you got on campus and some guys close to home. But, this is a chance to get some guys from a little bit outside the footprint. And, Auburn has kind of made a little bit of an impact at St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, and had a couple more of those guys in this weekend, including Zion Ali, a 5-star, pass rusher. So those guys had good visits. And then, Manuel Iheanacho is a big 5-star offensive tackle that may be the biggest human being I've ever seen. Probably close to 6'7", but he was 360 pounds, and he's not fat. I mean, he's just huge. Just a beast of a guy. And he's going to have everybody in the country after him. But Auburn was able to get him on campus early. So, it was a good kind of first foray into doing this, and kind of, again, put it around a basketball game, have a chance to kind of get guys on campus and start to build some of those relationships and try to get them back in now for a spring practice and kind of moving forward.
I think it's important, and Faith and I talked about it this past week, Jason, about we kind of broke down a lot of these kids that were coming in. And when you look down, recruiting's changed as far as how you have an outlook of who you want to really go after, especially with the quarterback position. Auburn's got a unique situation where they got a quarterback room that's full of guys that's never taken a snap at Auburn. You got 2 highly rated guys. The list didn't have anybody on there other than one quarterback from Grayson George. Obviously, he's a good kid, but you kind of have to shift your mindset and say, well, we've got 2 really good quarterbacks with a lot of eligibility. Why are we going to go out and get somebody else and add into that room and pay maybe a lot of money? I mean, is that the rationale now, Jason? Is that the thinking?
Yeah, I think everything almost now in college football and college athletics is treated by a professional model. And you look at it, whether it's football or basketball, especially right now. Look at the football perspective, and you go from a professional model. You start going, okay, what does your quarterback room go? And I mean, you're not going to spend $30 million on a backup quarterback. That's just not how it works. And so, your third guy may be a starter in college, and if he is, you would adjust that down the road. But yeah, you have to focus on the entire roster. And so, could you get 3 5-star quarterbacks on campus? Yeah, you probably could. but the rest of your roster was really going to suffer if you did that. And so you have to go and build this entire thing out. We just saw it at Ohio State. You look and go,
Right.
people have made a big deal out of $20 million roster. Well, most of the $20 million roster was keeping guys they'd recruited out of high school. That was the process for them, is keeping these highly rated guys. They went out and added a couple of transfers here or there, but the Jack Sawyers of the world and all these guys were guys that Ohio State recruited and kept on campus for another year. And that's where now roster management comes in. You develop guys, you keep them on campus, add a few pieces here or there out of the portal. I think the same thing's true at quarterback. You're not going to have, in this day and age, you're not going to have 4 quarterbacks on campus where you go, okay, here's our senior, here's our junior, here's our sophomore, here's our freshman. That's 1988. That is not 2025. And so, you have to adjust your quarterback room, who you're looking at. Auburn will continue to recruit some of these big name guys because the question now you have is you don't know what it's going to look like in December. You used to know what that was going to look like. Now you don't know. Now, a guy starts, plays, everybody else says, well, I'm done. That guy's going to play. If Deuce Knight were to be the quarterback, you go like, okay, that guy may be here for 3 more years. What are we going to do?
Right.
Guys leave, and all of a sudden you're left with one quarterback, and you have to change what you're doing. So, it's a very fluid situation.
Faith, you and I talked about the portal last week till we were sick of talking about it. I think that's why I don't have a voice, because I've talked about the portal so much. I think my voice went in the portal. But, it's a different day and age where you got to manage this stuff, and you don't know what it's going to look like 6 months from now.
Yeah, no, we were talking about what if Jackson Arnold starts and the same thing that Walker White just did happens with Deuce Knight. And, it's been a ongoing trend where Auburn hasn't been able to develop a young quarterback. We tried it out with Bo Nix. Obviously, it didn't work, and he left and went to Oregon. And all of our quarterbacks that we've had that have, been successful have been those guys that we've gotten from the transfer portal.
Right.
And now it's, what are we doing? What are we doing wrong? And why can't we develop a quarterback?
Yeah. Jason, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, the question is where is that being done anywhere right now? It's really not. I mean, Jalen Milroe was a guy that was developed at Alabama, but he's leaving with a lot of Alabama fans trying to shove him out of the door. I think he's going to be much better than people believe, and when he gets to the NFL in the right system. But we just saw it. Ohio State plays for national championship with a transfer quarterback. Notre Dame was the team they played with a transfer quarterback. Texas, even though Quinn Ewers grew up in Texas, was a transfer quarterback. Arizona State has a young guy, and we'll see how long they are able to hold on to him. But that's just the way of the world now, because guys, a little bit on Bo is like, I think he was always a really good quarterback, but they recruited the wrong guy for the wrong system. And so I think that's been part of Auburn's problem is they're recruiting guys that are good. Sean White in a good system, Jeremy Johnson in the right system. I think those guys are good quarterbacks, but they weren't made for Gus Malzahn's system. And that's been the issue for Auburn. And I wrote this, I don't know, maybe a month ago. I think this is the first time in 20 years, plus 20 years, that Auburn's quarterback room fits the offense that they want to run. I think that's such an important part of this.
With Jackson Arnold coming here?
Yeah, Jackson Arnold, Deuce, both those guys, both can run. They're athletic, can throw it, run in the RPO scheme. That to me is the missing piece of all this, is that you have to have the right quarterback to do what you want him to do. Because Lamar Jackson playing in Kansas City's offense, not nearly as good, vice versa. But because they've got him in the right system and the right fit, all of a sudden it makes a big difference. You look, we just talked about Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe was pretty darn good in 2023. 2024, different scheme, different system. All of a sudden, they look the same. And so I think that's a big part of quarterback, too, is finding the right guys to fit what you want to do.
Identity crisis, I guess, is one of the things that Auburn's battled over the last 10, 15 years, Jason, outside of, the flashes in the pan. We never could figure out why Gus Malzahn went away from the dual threat type quarterbacks that made him so successful. Brian Harsin, that's a whole different story. But maybe again, like Faith said, with Jackson Arnold coming in, and that maybe this is the guy, and Deuce Knight, one of the being one of the better high school quarterbacks in the country in this past class. Both those guys fit what Hugh Freeze wants to do, and maybe that will be, finally getting over the hump as far as figuring out what your identity is. Jason, I want to go back and let you talk about a few more of these guys that came in this weekend in the junior class. Just this is probably the most impressive group I've seen together. We've had some impressive groups come in, but you look at another situation where Hugh Freeze could be putting together, if things fall into place, another Freeze 4 at receiver. I mean, just a load of great receivers again in this year.
Yeah, no, obviously Sedarian's a guy right there, but Tristan Keys is a 5-star on campus from Mississippi that, talked to him. I think he had a really good visit. And then you already have Devin Carter committed. And for the old school folks our age, you remember watching Florida State and, those Bobby Bowden formative years. Dexter Carter was a really good player. This Devin Carter is Dexter Carter's son. Dexter shows up this weekend with his 49ers jacket on and a Super Bowl ring, and you go, that's a little bit of flash right there if you can have your own Super Bowl ring and showing up. But those guys are really good. And so, you start talking about, and, it's the kind of same thing in quarterback. You have guys, but you still want to go get guys because you don't know what's ahead. That was part of the problem in the past at Auburn is, we got a quarterback now. Let's go get somebody else, another position, instead of, we've got a quarterback, but let's go get a guy better than that guy this year. That's what you have to do. And you mentioned wide receiver. They got a good group of wide receivers on campus. A lot of them are young, but all of a sudden you look up and in 2026, Cam will be a junior, Malcolm will be a junior, and all of a sudden you go like, well, it's time to turn the room over again just about. You better continue to recruit guys in every class at every level because you don't know what's around the corner. And so continuing to try to add talent is a must. And again, those wide receiver guys that were in this weekend, just those 3 guys alone, you go, hey, you take those 3 guys and you go, we're good. We'll go on the next year because those are 3 explosive, really good players.
Faith, I know you and I talked about maybe getting some commitments out of this weekend. Was that something that you thought might happen, Jason? This weekend we might get a couple of commitments. Have you heard who might make a decision the next couple of days, or is it just too early?
Yeah, I think it's probably still a little bit early for guys. Some of the guys that committed, like Devin Carter, for instance, you do it around like an Under Armour game or a Navy All-American game to kind of get that exposure. Now, I think most of the guys that you're sitting here now, there'll be a couple of guys here or there that might make a decision, but most of these guys will get to that May, June official visit window time. They probably got 3 or 4 schools in mind. You take those visits and then commit over the summer prior to your senior year. But I think Auburn made some really good impact on a bunch of guys. And I think, would I be shocked if a guy or 2 here in the next couple of weeks, made a commitment? But I think most of these guys now are kind of going, hey, let's go see a couple of schools because it's still, December's not that far away, but you still got a little time to get ready for
it. Any guys that you think Auburn's going to sign in this next signing period? And it's coming up real quick. Anybody they're going to add to this current class? Yeah,
I think the guy to watch for obviously is Omar Mabson, Auburn High running back. Took his official visit this past weekend. Played at Auburn High School, and you look at the running back room, and you've got it spaced out pretty good. And you brought in a transfer that's a little older. It's hard to believe that Jeremiah Cobb's going to be a junior. That's just it's hard to fathom that he's already going to be that old. And then Damari Austin's a senior, so you got some spread out. You bring Alvin Henderson in. And Omar Mabson's a guy that would graduate high school early. So you'd have a guy that kind of gives you a little bit of space too, and physical guy. So that'd be a guy that I would watch for in February for Auburn, is just to add him. Other than that, I don't think so. I think, they're pretty set now. Potentially a couple of transfers in that last transfer portal. But other than that, I think they're pretty set.
All right, guys, let's shift over. Faith, you got anything else on recruiting?
No, I don't. I think we kind of covered it all.
Yeah, Jason, knew you would do a great job this weekend. You and Christian covering everything. Just such a great group of guys coming in. And one thing you can say, I know it hasn't been the results on the field this so far for Hugh Freeze and this group, but the recruiting's at a level we haven't seen and maybe ever. As far as consistency and being able to navigate the new waters of this world and how you're able to deal with the portal and all the things that go to it. So just continue to get the players, and I think eventually things will turn. So, all right, Faith, this weekend was crazy. Tennessee coming in, and there was a stampede right outside the dorms out there. I mean, first of all, we just are glad that nobody really something major didn't happen. I know some people did get injured, but man, it's the craziest scene right now in the country is Auburn basketball, and people are rabid. And I know they probably learned some things from all that, but it was wild that morning to see everybody kind of rushing toward Neville Arena.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people who went and got there a lot earlier than 6:30, and they didn't even get in. And I mean, there's got to be a better way. A lot of people were saying that, they would rather have gotten frostbite or, been in the cold than gone and gotten trampled over and had so many people, get hurt and all that kind of stuff. Or even like just get in. Like so many people wanted to it was on Friday night when I went over by campus, and there were some people just kind of walking around.
Yep.
But there were security and they did have the barricades up, but they were not letting anybody camp or anything like that. And to be honest with you, Friday night wasn't that cold. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, especially the whole week that we had, how it was freezing. It wasn't bad. So I don't know if they were thinking about letting people camp or whatever, but I know personally, I know someone that did get stitches and got her nose broke and all that kind of stuff. And there were just a lot of things that Auburn definitely could have done better, but
they'll learn from it.
Can I say a point too?
Yeah, absolutely.
If people follow directions, then that doesn't happen. There were guidelines set up, and people didn't do that.
People were hopping the barricades, and
that's how people got injured.
Nearly not enough security that was there, and there was no direction of what was like allowed because there wasn't enough security there. And in some of the videos that is from the dorms up top, you can just see people hopping over and all the security. There's the event people that are supposed to.
They're overwhelmed.
No, they're taking videos on their phone.
Well, when 2,000 people are trying to get somewhere, you're not going to stop them.
So, no, but I mean, why is there only 2 of them?
No, there were some police officers, people there too, but
down the gate though of where it goes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I think there were some things. Obviously, there are things they could do better, and they would. But again, it comes back.
I think the thing it just takes a few people to start a stampede, and I think you identify, obviously they'll learn from this. I mean, I think you had a system set up, and then it just takes a few idiots, and I hate to say it that way, but a few idiots to jump the fence, and everybody goes, well, crap, I've been standing out here. So and so, I'm going to start running, and then when you get a whole mass of people running, but yeah, and then anybody that was supposed to be doing security that was filming rather than trying to help, then they should probably
there'll be some things
that comes down, but again, kind of overcame that, had a good game day inside, and then the game. Jason, I'll kick it to you. Just I know everybody uses the term rock fight all the time, but man, it was ugly offensively for both sides. It was a really good defensive game for both teams, but there were some shots to be made that both teams just didn't make.
Yeah.
So, but the important thing is you got out of there with a W.
Yeah. And you have to work so hard to get those shots. You almost feel like, what am I doing? I'm wide open. I got to shoot the ball. And so you could see it. I think too, that having a week off hurt Auburn's rhythm offensively because it didn't feel like there was any flow to the game. But a lot of that is due to Tennessee and then Auburn doing the same thing to them. But that's a frustrating game for coaches. And I know I talked to a couple of Auburn coaches after the game. They're like, it's frustrating because they play and get away with so much inside the paint and there's so much physicality. But yet, you have a little guard turn the corner and nobody touches him and he falls down. They call a foul. Those are things like the anticipation calls. Well, I thought I saw something. Well, did you see something or did you think you saw something? And those are the ones that make that you go, hey, if you're going to let them play, then let everybody play. And they do that at times. And the frustrating part is you'll go to Wednesday night in LSU and 6 minutes in the game, you'll look up and you'll have 8 fouls. And you go, well, this game's not called the same way. So it's hard to know what you're going to get. But that was a physical basketball game. And Janai Broome still wasn't, explosive coming off the floor. But if he don't play, Auburn does not win that basketball game.
Faith, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's a good thing. We talked about it all week like everybody. Was Janai Broome going to play in this game? And thank God he did because we needed him. If we didn't have him, we would have lost the ball game. I mean, and for him, to me, that I know we've got a lot of basketball left to play, but if that's not a Heisman moment in basketball, what he went out and did, I don't know what is. And I know that Cooper Flagg's great, but what Janai Broome proved coming off a couple weeks with a very severely sprained ankle where we all thought maybe he might not come back this year after we initially saw it, to come out and do what he did, man, was unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he definitely I still don't think he was 110% like y'all were saying. It wasn't as explosive or anything like that. But I mean, I think he really proved, himself and his character and just coming out there and showing that, he is that guy and he is able to make those kind of plays. But no way we would have won that basketball game if he wasn't in there at all.
Jason, that just shows you too that 80% Janai Broome's better than 95% of the rest of the country. That's just how good he is.
Well, and it also shows you what he's able to do without playing above the rim because he doesn't play that way. So for him, it was easier to come back because he still had the things that he does well. Now, he didn't do them as well, but he still has the things he does well, which is body control, post moves, all those things in the paint. He still has those things, even though he's not a guy that, because you think about a guy his size and you go, him and Dylan Caldwell, similar size guys, but they're completely different basketball players.
Absolutely.
Dylan on a sprained ankle would have a whole lot of issues being as effective defensively, which is what he does. Broome's offensive game, it didn't really impact his offensive game a whole lot. Even though he had double-digit rebounds, he wasn't as impactful rebounding and doing some of those things. But offensively, he's still going to make those plays.
Yeah, you flip the page in this league, and again, Auburn navigated the first third of the SEC season undefeated, the only team to do that. So now you look at this next 6 and got some tough teams in there. Obviously, Florida, Alabama in a couple of weeks. But you got LSU on the road coming up midweek this week, Jason. And again, they haven't had a very good season to this point, but they just went to Alabama and I think surprised everybody on how well they played Alabama. So again, when you go to somebody else's house, you just better be prepared. You better play your best game. I think we lost you there, Jason.
The thing you have to realize now, too, as from an Auburn perspective, is it's a much different situation when you're the team that everybody targets, and you're going to get everybody's best shot, and how you deal with that's going to be important. So you're right, LSU, that'll be a difficult game when you start talking about playing on the road. But then Ole Miss at home has been really good. Now they've lost a couple of games in a row, but yeah, then come back Oklahoma, Florida. Oklahoma has a lottery pick. Florida may be and probably is the most difficult matchup for this Auburn team because of their length. That's going to be the one, even at home, that's going to be as difficult a game as Auburn may have the entire season. But yeah, it doesn't get any easier. And Auburn, 7th ranked win already, 10 quad one, whatever. They're going to set a record for quad one games without a question. And they keep winning games, they're going to have the most quad one victories of any team since this thing has been happening, and that's pretty incredible to think about.
Faith, we've talked about the magic number being 13, so that means Auburn's got to win 7 out of 12 to get to 13. The 7 of the remaining 12. Jason, do you think that's the magic number like we do, 13?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. This Alabama team's playing better defensively, and they didn't do it as much. I don't know if they lose 5 games or not. But I think Auburn, Alabama, and Florida are all going to be teams that could potentially be there. But if you go 13-5 in this league,
right,
you will give yourself a great chance. I don't know that it'd be much less than that. I don't see anybody being a 3-loss team. I don't see anybody at 15-3 unless it's Auburn. I don't know that anybody else can get to that number because you start talking about what it looks like here the rest of the way and the games you have. And, for Auburn, you start running down a schedule and you start to look more at the road games, but obviously the home game against Florida. But I mean, at Vandy has been a difficult place.
Oh yeah,
at Alabama
for everybody,
a difficult place. At Kentucky, at Texas A&M, and then you have Florida and Alabama at home. Those are your games where you go. Was that 6 games or so? You split those 6 and win the rest of them in 15-3.
Yeah,
you can go ahead and I'm, in my opinion, can have a banner ready for another SEC championship, at least regular season.
Jason, question from Justin said, how many games can Auburn lose and stay a number 1 seed?
I think a number 1 seed, you could probably get to 4 or 5 SEC losses and still be a number 1 seed. Duke's probably not going to lose more than 1 ACC game because the league's just not very good.
The conference just isn't as good.
So they're going to hold 1 up there. Then you start talking about battling the rest of this league and Alabama and Florida, kind of how that race goes. Whoever wins this league is going to be a number 1 seed without question. And probably the second team is going to be a number 1 seed. So I think you're going to have 2 ones at this league. And then you start looking at the rest of the country. Is there anybody else that can make a run at one of those types? Because UConn is not going to do it. They've lost too many games. You start talking about ACC. There's nobody else other than Duke. The Big 12, Houston, I think, is still going to be in line now to be a 1 seed, and you have beaten that team. I think Houston, Kansas is not in there. They've lost 3 or 4 already. And then out west, there's not really anybody else. Oregon was a team that maybe challenged early on. And so I think you're going to have 2 1 seeds out of this league, and I'd be really surprised if Auburn's not at least one of those guys.
Well, Jason, really appreciate you joining us this morning, man. And again, look forward to having you on Mondays with us to kind of give us updates on what you guys are doing. Give yourself a chance to promote what you guys do at 24/7 because we really kind of hitch our wagon to what you guys do. I know there's a lot of other good services out there, but I know you and I go back a long time, and Christian does a great job. And so just kind of tell everybody what they can do to follow what you guys do at 24/7.
Yeah, like I said, check us out at auburnundercover.com. If you go to 24/7 Auburn tab, that'll bring you to us. And we just had a 50% special for folks who hasn't signed up before. We'll have some of those coming here down the road as well. But check us out, like I said, auburnundercover.com. We got YouTube, Instagram, all those things. So Patrick and some of the younger guys do a great job of kind of getting that stuff going. But yeah, come check us out. Hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Jason, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you so much. I know Faith does too. And we appreciate, again, look forward to having you on with us on Mondays, man. I'll let you slide on out. Okay.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Hi, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. All right, Faith, we'll continue on here. I got about 5 more minutes. I go back and, again, just kind of talk about that win. But I agree with what you were saying about the mob. Again, you don't ever know when something like that's going to happen, but you almost have to anticipate right now when you have a situation where you knew people weren't going to be able to do it like they normally did it. So you were going to have a lot of people all at one time in a very small space. And look, again, I think if nobody jumps those barriers, you've got order. Everybody walks up the sidewalk and everybody's cool. But you got a few idiots that want to ruin it for everybody. So I hope they isolated those people. I hope they go back and look at the cameras. I heard that some people singled them out. So I hope there's some repercussions for them.
Yeah, I mean, you hope so. The same thing that Jason was kind of saying was, yes, like you want to obviously blame the students. The students are
Right.
in the wrong for sure. No one should have been jumping barricades. Listen to what you're supposed to do, be in order. I can also guarantee a lot of those were seniors that were like, I want to get in there and I would have camped out. This is my last year. I'm going to go hop that and everything. To be able to just, I think, have a little bit more security to be like, okay, again, you have to assume this is one of the biggest home games, especially this early in the season too, for people, where it's like you need to expect those kind of things, and you didn't let them camp out. And if we have a team that and students that want to camp out for your team, that should show how, first of all, how crazy they are and what they're going to do to be able to get to that game.
Absolutely. No doubt. I think you summed that up about as good as it can be summed up. So just glad Auburn got the win. It was not pretty, but you'll take an ugly win over a pretty loss any day of the week. By the way, Justin had to give you props on your hat game this morning. Your hat game's on fire, Faith.
Thank you.
It is a very good looking hat, by the way. But Bruce is going to be on with us today at noon on the Auburn Blitz show. So we're excited about that. And apparently, Faith, as I get off here and head to this press conference that we're about to have, nobody can hold water, right, in this world. If it goes too long, you're going to find out. Well, the story did break this morning because the coach did tell his team this morning, so it kind of got out. So a few news agencies found out, but we're about to go make it official here in just a minute. So I've got this Benjamin Russell shirt on. That Kirk Johnson will be the next head football coach at Benjamin Russell. The former coach at Catholic Montgomery just won 2 consecutive state championships. The last 2 years is 55-2 as a head coach down there. So he will be coming to Benjamin Russell to inherit this program and see if he can take Benjamin Russell back to the top of the mountain. So going to be an exciting day. Got a lot going on, Faith. I know you got a busy day as well. And I know we jumped on a little bit earlier than normal, but we try to adjust too. We kind of have to adapt, kind of like in a basketball game when your guards aren't hitting shots, you got to get some shots inside and try to make the most of it. So, but a huge hire there for Benjamin Russell.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. And what he's got a few people maybe coming with him.
Yeah, it's what it sounds like. I think he'll probably talk about that this morning. So I'll have an interview with him. My voice does feel like it's getting a little bit stronger. So hopefully as the day goes on, it'll get a little bit better.
Ask Rick what he does. He's got a remedy for whenever he's got a sore throat, and he talked to us about that. So why don't you ask him? That might make you feel better.
Absolutely. Well, Faith, always good seeing you this morning, and we'll be back with you tomorrow for another edition of the Auburn Blitz podcast. Again, want to thank Sense of Green for air that's cool and clean. Call them Sense of Green. Want to thank Scout Program Management for all of their support and partnering with us here on the program. A full construction management firm that will help you take you through the project from start to finish. I also want to thank Bunkers in Auburn, the best place to go hang out with your friends, play a little simulated golf, have some great food, have some great drinks at the bar. Lee Apparel, for all your promotional products and apparel needs. Call on Lee Apparel down in Davil, Alabama, soon to have an office in Auburn. And then Sign Source for all your signage needs and installation. Call on Sign Source, and going to be adding a couple more to our partnership here on the podcast, Faith, here as we get into February. We're excited about that. So a lot going on today. And hey, thanks for all the comments. I know we couldn't really get to many of them this morning because we're kind of in a rush, but tune us in tomorrow. Again, thanks to Jason Caldwell. Glad to have him, Faith, joining us on Mondays and bringing that insight from 24/7. That's a huge deal for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Randy will be back tomorrow morning as well. And I will be back on at 8:20 like normal.
Back to normal programming tomorrow. So look forward. But again, reminder, Bruce Pearl will be with us at lunch today on the Auburn Blitz. That should be a lot of fun. Make sure you tune us in there. All right, everybody, have a great day. Be safe out there, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.